Hey, Allison. How are you?
Yeah.
Good. Very excited to be here.
Same. What an amazing day, huh?
It's an amazing opportunity to listen to those speakers.
I feel really privileged to be in this room. So we just heard from 3 leading experts on AI and 2 inspiring young leaders. And a lot of issues have been raised. AI, the climate, equity. How are you feeling? Where do you think we're going from here?
So I take a page out of Hans Rosling's book. He wrote the book Factfulness, and he said, I'm a possibilist. I see the possibilities. And so it's not that I'm not being pragmatic about it, but I'm very hopeful because I can begin to see the possibilities about how these things can come together to kind of solve some of the issues that we're facing.
I'm going to try to stay with you on the excitement. I feel 2 things. I feel excitement. I feel like this generation is so diverse. They come into this moment so much more prepared than I came in as an adult. They know technology. They have a commitment to the wider world that they live in. But I still find myself sort of trepidation is something maybe I'm experiencing a little bit, like knowing our history and knowing where we've come from. Will we use this moment? Will we capitalize on it?
I think we will. I absolutely do. And I appreciate the trepidation. I mean, I appreciate the dialogue in the market, as Derek was pointing out, that dystopian versus utopian,
Yeah.
right? But I often think it's a little bit more about how these tools can, unfortunately, unlock things that bad actors could do, as opposed to a story about Terminator or war games.
No, those are great analogies. Like, I think a lot about, it's about the values that underpin all of this, right? Like, I think a lot about employer practices that promote equity. And so it's like, are we using these tools to really think about how we accelerate learning? Are we accelerating mobility? Or are we using them to be creepy and follow employees on what they're doing? And I think if we're really embracing a values-based approach, then we're winning, right?
Without question. We talk a lot about it in the Deloitte context, our Human Capital Trends report. We sort of cite some fundamentals that need to be really applied to take advantage of this world that's coming. One of them is about co-creating with your workforce. So this bottoms up, take advantage of that energy and that innovation that Chrissy was talking about. The other is to focus on human outcomes. It's really about elevating humans in what we do, and you heard that through the AI conversation around this level of augmentation versus automation. And so I think if we bring this level of innovation, experimentation, bring this level of co-creating bottoms up, because that's where it's happening, and focus on human outcomes, those possibilities will emerge.
I love those little nuggets. Are there any others that you would add in terms of like co-creation, focusing on the bottom up?
Yeah, interesting. As we talk about AI and this level of automation, augmentation, I've been very excited about it because so much of what we do today in the work world has this level of mundane drudgery, right?
Yeah.
70% of what an engineer does is spend time finding the data. 50% of a nurse's time is spent doing things that relate to admin. And so suddenly you're in a world where if the AI toolkits and the robotics toolkits can unlock that capacity, what will that engineer do with her time? It will go back to her craft, it will go back to analysis, it will go back to innovation. What will the nurse do with his time? It'll go back to bedside care, right? And this is in a world where, of course, we're hearing about the hot labor market, the job shortages, the nursing shortages, and so forth. This gives us a real opportunity back to the possibilities to kind of solve some of those challenges. And that's what really excites me.
Yeah, no, I'm excited for myself and hope that sometimes it'll bring a little more productivity back to my day. I'm pretty selfish about that, and maybe letting me lean in a little bit more to relationship aspects of work.
Exactly.
But I also worry a lot about how do we think about the most entry-level occupations and the folks who maybe don't have the pieces of their work that AI can sort of accelerate. Like I was thinking about, we're in this amazing hotel, but I was thinking about housekeeping as like the backbone of what's happening. And like, how do we think, AI impacts those kinds of jobs? And also like, how do we, how do we deal with the real fear that people in very entry-level jobs like that have been kind of automated out? I mean, nobody pays an attendant in a parking garage anymore.
Yeah, I mean, there are definitely concerns along those lines, no question. It's why I'm so supercharged by this group of people and the conference that JFF is having and the discussion we're trying to create. But we're already seeing interesting nuggets of opportunity in places of the sort you're describing. So one of my new favorites is Flippy the robot, who's a robot that is actually now in 80 different fast food chain franchises. And of course, the robot is doing things like flipping the burgers and testing the oil for the fries. But what it's meant is that people behind the scenes are operating the robots in the kitchen, and they're running around on iPads, making sure that it's all calibrated. More people are able to be up front, dealing with the customers, interacting with them, providing better advice and customer care, creating a better experience. And in the dynamic that's taken place around those jobs being hard to fill, it has pushed a bit of the minimum wage to go up, but it's also now created this new level of job and job capability. And if you see more and more of that happening, my other favorite is a robot that's now cleaning the windows on skyscrapers. And of course, I have fear of heights, so for me that's a big one, right? But you still have individuals that are setting up the robot and watching it do its job and calibrating it as it does it. And it's a whole different new job creation dimension.
Yeah.
And so even as we were listening to AI experts talk a little bit about the augmentation and the extent to which it's going to unleash that capacity, free you up from the mundane, there's still this other horizon of the new jobs we haven't yet thought about, that it will elevate how humans work.
What you were just talking about talked a little bit about this technology and then this idea of sort of new jobs that we don't even know about. And a third thing you mentioned was rising wages. That's a trend I'm particularly happy about and think that I hope is a trend that's here to stay. Aside from the sort of technology and the wage issues, are there other trends that you've been hearing about at this conference that you sort of think are here to stay? Or are there flashes in the pan that you think are?
Well, I think it's really interesting that the conversation in the market about mental health and burnout and well-being has kind of risen to the place that it has. And I think that relates directly to this conversation we're having about augmentation and productivity. And it really puts this ability for us to take and put human performance in the forefront. And what I mean by that is how we perform best as humans. Those who perform better at night, who perform in the evening, downtime, putting our health first, caring for the things we care about, what gives us meaning in our lives. And that ability to reset our mindset around work and life has become really not just apparent, but really possible. And then you connect that back to what the Gen Z population is talking about and their relationship to work and their identity and what they're saying. And suddenly you can begin to see a whole new pathway opening up, and one that I think is really critical for us as a society.
No, I agree. And I think one of the things I appreciate most about this generation is this. It's not even the old paradigm was learn, love to work, or work to live kind of thing, live to work. They have a whole other take on it, right? That's so too binary, that it's really about all of these things that enable a whole person to kind of show up in different spaces and not have to bifurcate themselves or put them into certain boxes. And I think it's a really powerful concept.
Very powerful concept. We did a study of millennial and Gen Zs, and only about 45% of the Gen Zs that we studied see work as critical to their identity, which is different than how it's been, as you can see.
Yeah, it's amazing.
But that doesn't mean they're not hardworking. And the thing that they most look for and respect are in their peers are those that have better work-life balance for themselves, organizations that offer that work-life balance, that flexibility. And some of the things they're most frustrated by are those organizations that don't see them as a whole person.
Right.
To your point.
Yep. And I think, at least for me, they're really challenging me in both our workplace, but at Casey we do a lot of engagement with young people about how they see their world, and they challenge us to show up as whole people in the workplace, right? And I think as a Gen Xer who maybe has been taught or kind of came into a space that very compartmentalized what I expected out of things, that feels good, right? I'm learning and growing from that perspective as well.
We're absolutely gaining, right? Yeah. I'm being asked now as a leader in our organization to role model kind of how I take my work-life balance seriously. And as before, it was something I had to hide a little bit, right? Like, oh, I'm taking a break at lunchtime to go work out. Now, of course, I'm making sure that our work days and my project teams are well aware that that's what I'm doing and that's what they ought to be doing too. And that's a small but palpable shift.
And that's a great shift, right?
Absolutely.
Back to that mental health and wellness.
Absolutely, right? Back to that, how do we elevate how humans perform in the workplace? And how do we wrap that in the right way? And how do we support that so that the broader performance of the organization can be better?
So I think our theme here has been without limits. If you think about the future of work and you think about a future of work without limits, like what does that mean to you?
That's a great question. So, it's interesting. I think that the opportunity that JFF is presenting with quality jobs, for me, really resonates, because for me, it's long been about this opportunity that we have to create meaningful work for everyone. Work where you're excited and supercharged by what you're doing, where you're sort of interested in it because it's intellectually interesting. Mm-hmm. Work where you're getting out of it what you need, but still have the rest of the things that give you purpose in life that are not work, mm-hmm. and that's okay. And that balance. Again, it's this way that sort of humanity is coming to the fore, mm-hmm. and that I think is the real sort of North Star for things.
Yeah. We, at the Casey Foundation, we talk a lot about brighter futures for all children, and we talk about, some version of this question, right? And then I think a lot about what is a brighter future for all children as they pursue a career and a job. And I think we talk a lot about young people having the skills and the credentials and the relationships and the experiences to really have this more full version of their self. But I think the other thing I'm balancing that with that is that the proportion of young people who don't have that or were not well positioned, right, and the way that those inequities are structuralized and racialized. And I think a little bit it leaves me with that MLK quote, right? Like mm-hmm. the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. And I think you and I are both saying we do believe it bends towards justice, but I think maybe I'm saying can we take it and bend it a little faster?
Well, yes, we absolutely need to make sure that we're moving as quickly as we can for the needs of those populations. But you're watching these technologies take rapid fire. Even the ChatGPT discussion, for example, it took TikTok 9 months to reach 100 million users. It took the iPhone 2 years. It took ChatGPT 6 weeks. So we're moving fast, right?
So we're moving fast. We just need to be moving towards justice.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If we can just make that exponential, what would it look like?
Amazing.
Absolutely. So it's been a great conversation. I hope everyone got quite a lot out of this session. I certainly did, and I look forward to the rest.
Same. Thank you all for joining us in this session.